Schwantum, Huh? Does anyone have any idea what I just said? Do you think it would be hard to communicate? Like, let's say I was just trying to start a conversation with you, Abby, for example. How would you have communicated if you had no idea what I just said?
I probably would have shaken my head.
All right. There's a lot of different types of communication in the world now today, and especially back in the day of the Native Americans. Does anyone know different examples of how we communicate today besides spoken language?
Body.
Sign language, body language, texting. There's all sorts of different technology that we can use for communication. Email. Anyone have any other ideas? Facebook. Facebook is a big communication tool these days, isn't it? But like I was saying, the different types of Indians had different ways of communication, and a lot of them weren't the same. I mean, you think of how many people in the United States right now speak English. And it's a lot easier for us to communicate. But back during the day of the Native Americans, there were lots of different languages spoken. So one thing that they had to do was come up with different forms of communication that could be read or understood by each other, even though, they spoke different languages. Why do you guys think it would be important for the Native Americans to be able to communicate?
So they don't start a war.
So they don't start a war. Yep, that's a really good reason. Abby?
Trading.
Trading was very important because the Native Americans came from different areas and had different skill sets. So in order to gain other needs, different food types, clothing types, and things like that, they had to trade. So they had to come up with different forms of communication. Since yesterday we were talking about the Plain Indians, two of the main communications that they used were different body language or hand signals, and another thing they used were picture symbols. So if you look up, I'm going to put up an example. Here's a chart of different examples of pictures used by the Plain Native Americans for communication. Obviously, there were probably a lot more symbols than what is in this chart. But what we're going to do today, let me see if I can focus that up a little bit better. Okay, what we're going to do today is we're going to do a creative writing assignment using the symbols that the Plains Indians used. I'm going to hand out some loose leaf paper, and we're going to do a rough draft first before we do a final draft. And one thing that they would use to write on was buffalo hide. So since we don't have any extra buffalo hide laying around, our final drafts, I'm going to take some brown construction paper, and we're going to crinkle it all up and soak it in water to give it a neat texture. And then our final drafts, we're going to use paints to put it on our buffalo hide, and that'll be displayed at our parent-teacher conferences coming up. So I'm going to hand out some loose leaf paper. Basically, just take time to look at the words and try to think of what kind of story you can come up with. Maybe it's a message from one tribe to another. Maybe it's a message from a parent to a daughter or son. And just take some time. And then what I want you to do is, as you're writing your story on the top half, I also want you to put the words in English too. And if you have to add extra words to connect the words together, make sure that's in your English portion too. So we're going to take a few minutes here to just get started on our rough drafts. Do you have any questions yet? Okay. So go ahead and get started. And I'll just kind of walk around the room if you have any questions or need any help with ideas.
So we make the English story up here and then
have that translation of both languages on your paper.
I want to put the happy girl, but I just use a girl and then put a heart in it. Or would it have to be a girl and then the heart?
I would do the girl in heart. I'm seeing a lot of good variety in how you guys are writing the symbols and writing the translations. That's good. I see you're using, what works best for you. Some people are doing just the story first, some people are doing just the symbols, and then some people are writing them right on top of each other. It's a nice variety of skills. Just for right now, since we're a little short on time, I'm going to have, and since these are just our rough drafts, I'm going to give you guys about 2-3 more minutes to kind of just finish up what you have to make sure you have all the symbols for what you have written so far. And then I'll let you guys, if you want to volunteer, you can bring yours up to the Elmo and show the class the progress that you're making, and maybe other people can get ideas off of your work. So it'll be just a couple more minutes. Very nice, Cassie. Finish up where you're at. Remember, we're still going to have more time. This is just to see the progress that we're making. Does anyone want to volunteer and bring up the portion of the story that they have done already? No? Then bring it up to the Alamo so the whole class can see. And you can, tell us your story. Tell us, how you decided to write it. Zoom me out here. There you go.
Read my story?
Sure.
It was night in the village down in the mountains. The medicine man was returning from a hunt when the clouds quickly moved in and it started to rain. It rained for 2 days. The horses were having a hard time leaving the village to hunt for food.
Very nice. And you were one of the people, like I was saying, people are using a variety of ways to write it. She wrote her story in English words first and then translated to the symbols. Very nice. Does anyone else have another example they would like to share with the class? Okay.
All right. Chief Leave Village good food, and then I couldn't get the returns one time. Returns with woman in lasso.
Okay. Very good so far. And if you notice, he wrote the words right on top of the symbols. All right, that's, you guys are making great progress. I'm going to put that back up on the board so you guys can